Helen, I'm very sorry for your loss. It's always terrible to lose an animal that you're close to, but particularly in that way that you had to say farewell to Geronimo. Before we get to the details, just try to sum up how you felt as you watched those appalling scenes down at your farm in Gloucestershire.
Well, I wasn't actually on farm. I had been here in the morning and we'd had a constructive conversation with our team that were working behind the scenes with government to arrange for Geronimo to be kept for research involving a vaccination program. And I was actually on the phone to Dom after that, and then I left the farm, and then they turned up, and it was just the most horrific cruelty I have ever seen in my entire career. I have never seen anything like that. These thugs just broke in. They paid no respect to anybody. I have not seen this footage, and I'm not going to look at it. At the end of the day, they grabbed these animals. They frightened them to death. My 20-year-old is really geriatric. They frightened them to death. They had a rope around his head and they suffocated him, dragged him into a trailer. They must sit down when they're traveling, and they tied him to a trailer. I don't know when they killed him. I don't know if he suffocated. I don't know if he hanged himself on that rope. And these were government vets and police that refused to engage with anyone. They refused to speak. They pushed and shoved people around. And this was just the worst kind of torture I have ever come across. And for the government to allow that to happen, it's absolutely despicable.
Well, I understand you not wanting to watch that footage, but I'm not going to make any apologies for the fact that we are playing it right now, because I think people need to be reminded of the way poor little Geronimo was treated. And the ultimate irony there, Helen, is he put up one hell of a fight for his life, and it was the kind of fight that only a very healthy animal could put up.
We know there's nothing wrong with him. We know he didn't get TB in New Zealand, as they alleged. In 2015 he was supposed to have it, which was about 6 years ago. We know they fudged the test. We know they didn't use a valid test. And then we know that they repeated the test and forced him to have more tuberculin so they could create a suspicion of disease. This is a criminal act as far as I'm concerned. And they knowingly murdered this animal, knowing that they were basically punishing me for challenging the regime that they have to uphold at all costs, which is what they say in court all the time. George Eustace has known about this for 3 years and has completely ignored me and industry, and they have murdered a perfectly healthy animal, as you all witnessed.
Let's get a few of the facts straight now. As I understand it, yes, there were what you say are a couple of false positive test results for the reasons that you've explained. They have to, for some reason, they inject slight amounts of the disease into the animal before they test it. But before that, he had tested negative, hadn't he?
He had 4 skin tests in New Zealand as part of his normal surveillance and export requirements, which is an internationally recognised test. So yes, the antibody test he had in the UK measured the tuberculin response. And I mean, even their own scientist, Dr. Eleanor Brown, 2 weeks ago in court admitted that they'd done no research into multiple priming before this test. And they conceded that Geronimo had not had any investigative studies in the 4 years that he's been here since those results were done. Now, they refused to test him. They refused to test the other animals in isolation with him. So when you've got a situation where he's in a biosecure area, he's no risk to badgers, cattle, or anyone else, and they accepted that, for them to come and do that act of butchery in front of a worldwide audience, knowing damn well that there was nothing wrong with that animal, is a heinous crime, an absolutely heinous crime.
I agree. And if you saw the papers today, I think the majority of people in this country are right behind you. The other fact that I think we ought to stress, which is what confuses me, that Geronimo is supposed to have had bovine tuberculosis, a debilitating and incredibly infectious disease, one of the most debilitating and infectious diseases known to the animal kingdom, for 4 years. Yeah. You can tell he's as healthy as hell. And also, He's lived among other animals and has never passed it on to anyone. So, you know, what is their reasoning for saying this animal is very sick? It's clearly not sick.
Well, they have a kill at all cost policy based on poor testing. So for me, this has always been a personal attack. And this is about me challenging. I asked a valid question 4 years ago and I got abused from day one. I was told, just let us kill him, we'll get you out of restriction. We just need to kill Geronimo. No, you can't use any other tests until he's dead. We just need him dead. All of those things were said to me. The deputy chief veterinary officer at the time threatened and bullied me when I said I was going to go to court. And all this bullying is about upholding the regime, which is what they've been saying in court more recently, and the fact that if you challenge DEFRA over science and they have no credible answer, they will just bully you and hide behind the law until you give up or your animal is killed. And that is how farmers are living in this country.
Well, just to placate, I think, some of the people that sort of call people like me a townie and I don't understand the ways of the country. The way I see this is, you know, Geronimo was a sentient creature, you know, who has feelings, you know, who you shared his life with him. So can you just sum up the kind of, you know, because animals have personalities, they're all different. Tell us the kind of animal that Geronimo was. What kind of a character was he?
He was very outgoing, very cheeky, very confident, very well trained. Yeah, loved his food. As you could tell, he was quite fat. He put on 10 kilos in 4 years. He's a chubby little chap. Never said boo to a goose, very charming. He was dominant, you know, if he could have mated females and beat up boys, he would have done so, which is why he was kept on his own, because he beat up his friend when he arrived 4 years ago. Perfectly beautiful animal, which would have produced beautiful progeny for the UK black fibre market. Yeah, and DEFRA wanted to kill it.
And are you going to miss him?
I haven't even processed yet, but he's not outside. To be perfectly honest with you, this has just been the most horrific 24 hours. I believed that George Eustace was coming to a meeting yesterday morning, and then I was surrounded by police officers and vets that were so incompetent they need to be struck off. I have never had such a horrific 24 hours in my entire nursing career or in any other circumstance. So I haven't processed that he's even missing yet.